Welcome to Lesson 6, where we will learn how to interpret a distance-time graph. Alright, so we call this section distance and time because the graphs have distance as one of the variables and time as the other variable. So what we're given here is a situation. Every morning Tom walks along a straight road from his home to a bus stop. The graph shows his journey on one particular day. And what we're asked to do is to just kind of tell a story based on what we see in this graph. So what I first see is that over this chunk of time, we see Tom's distance growing from 0 to 100 over 0 to 50 seconds. Since Tom's distance from home is increasing, I would say he's getting closer and closer to the bus stop. So my first sentence would be that Tom is walking to the bus stop. Now in the second chunk of the graph, we see that the distance from home is decreasing, meaning that Tom is heading back towards home. This might be explained by saying that Tom realizes he dropped something, so he starts heading back towards home and picks up the item. In this third section of the graph, we see that Tom is moving back towards the bus stop, moving further away from home again, because the graph is increasing, so his distance from home is getting bigger. But we also notice that he's moving faster. If you compare the first chunk of the graph to the second chunk of the graph, we notice that in the first chunk he went 100 meters from home in 50 seconds. Where in the second increasing chunk, he went 120 meters in just 30 seconds. So he went further in less time, meaning he's moving faster. And you can visually see that by seeing that this segment is steeper than this first segment. We could explain this by saying that Tom walks faster back to the bus stop, maybe because he's concerned about missing the bus now. Finally, we notice that in this last segment, it's constant. He's not getting closer to home or further from home. This probably means he's just standing still. And this might be because he got to the bus stop and now he's just waiting for the bus. So now instead of just looking at a graph, we can actually tell the story that it represents. So this next type of problem shows that a delivery truck drives down a straight road to make a delivery. This is going to be the distance it is away from its starting point, and the x variable represents how long since he left. Now, they're going to ask us questions about these different segments of the graph. So the first one they ask us about is segment D. So in segment D, we notice that this truck is not getting any closer or further from the point that it originally started at. So that means that it's not moving. It's not going left and right. Some people don't understand this. They think that it's moving left or right. No, it's just not moving. Its distance is remaining 8 miles from its original starting point. It's not getting closer or further. So we would say that the truck is stopped during this interval. Perhaps it's filling up for more gas. Next, they ask us, what do we think segment E represents? That's this chunk of the graph. Well, in this chunk, the graph is decreasing, meaning that the truck is getting closer and closer and closer to its original starting point. I would say that this represents the truck returning to where it started. We see that it started at a certain point, 0 miles away from whatever that location is, so its starting point, and then it did some stuff getting further and further away, and now after 11 hours, it's back to where it started. So segment E represents it returning home. Next, they ask us what segment C represents. Now, you need to be careful. This is not a truck going up a hill, going down the hill. That is not what this represents. It represents a truck getting further away from its starting point, not moving, getting further away, not moving, and then returning back home. So in segment C, they're asking, is it representing it going up a steep hill? Well, no, not necessarily. And realistically, it's probably the opposite, because you notice this is pretty steep, the actual graph itself, which means that the truck is moving pretty fast, which we usually don't see going up a hill. So maybe this is even going down a hill. We don't know, but we can't say just because it's going up that means that the truck is going up a hill. So I write, no, not necessarily. It just means that it's getting further away from its original starting point. Next, they ask us how fast the truck is moving during segment E. In segment E, the truck is going 8 miles of distance over 4 hours. From here to here represents 8 miles over 4 hours. Now, you may think that this is negative because it's going down, but that's just the distance being traveled is 8 miles. It just happened to be that those 8 miles were being traveled back towards home. So this is going 8 miles per 4 hours, which we could also call 2 miles per hour. So this truck's moving pretty slow. Now for a little review over what we did in the last lesson. Where is this graph increasing? It's increasing on segment A and segment C, which with interval notation would be 0, 2, and 3, 5. Where is this constant? We see it on interval B and D, which interval notation would say 2 to 3 and 5 to 7. And finally, where is this decreasing? And that's E, which interval notation would say is 7 to 11. Finally, they ask us what is the maximum value. This occurs right here on segment D at a distance of 8 miles. So 8 miles is the maximum value. And what does this represent? This represents that the furthest the truck got away was 8 miles. Now, if we try to tell the story of this, we would start here. The truck starts leaving for its delivery. It stops, probably making its delivery, its first delivery. Then it keeps getting further away from its original starting point. Now it's stopped again, probably making its second delivery. And now finally, it's returning back home. All right, in this lesson, we learned how to take real-life situations and model them with a distance time graph. By doing this, we're able to analyze and investigate these situations using mathematical concepts. Something big that I want you to remember is that if the graph is going up or down, it's talking about the object getting further or closer from its starting point. It's not talking about going up or down a hill. If you came away with anything else from this lesson, write it down now. Otherwise, we'll see you next time.